Hi everyone, Brittany Sellers here from Tennessee, where the licensing board is the Board for Professional Counselors, Marital and Family Therapists, and Clinical Pastoral Therapists. They have an online monthly report, the Health Professional Board's disciplinary actions on the Tennessee government website under the Health and Health Professional subpages listed. They list these reports monthly from 2021 in reverse chronological order to 2004. There are only two disciplinary actions thus far in 2021, the first for failing to disclose prior convictions, and the second for unethical behaviors, professional misconduct, and failure to maintain professional versus personal boundaries. Since there were only two listed so far in 2021, I explored further back several years. There was a common referral back to the ACA Code of Ethics 2014 as rationale for disciplinary actions, as well as common themes unethical in the violations, unethical decision making, inappropriate boundary crossing, harmful conduct, negligent actions, as well as not meeting or misrepresenting education or continuing education requirements. These motifs were similar to the ones found in a 2019 research article by Tyler Wilkerson, Danielle Smith, and Ramona Wimberly, where they studied the top ethical violations that were then acted upon with disciplinary actions by different states. And the ones that they found common themes for were improper boundaries, educational and continuing education misrepresentation, fraud, and impaired professionals. And as I was reading through these cases as well as this research article, I was thinking about the need for accountability from a biblical stance. Verses like Romans 12:16, Colossians 3:13, Galatians 6:1 through 5, as well as the picture of sending out disciples in pairs, there's this strong case to be made for being held accountable to walking in integrity and setting safeguards to avoid impairment or unethical decision making. So, as a licensed professional counselor with a biblical worldview, it becomes necessary to have accountability while maintaining confidentiality of the clients in order to set those safeguards. The disciplinary reports in Tennessee do not go into details about the whole case, but the listed violations are telling to the implications of the impaired decision making. The particular case I looked at had the following violations: professional misconduct, failure to maintain professional boundaries, and unethical misconduct. The actions taken by the board for this particular case were license was suspended. They had to successfully complete a boundary program. Suspension will then be stayed and license will be placed on probation for 1 year, and they must obtain practice monitor providing monthly reports, as well as assessed a civil penalty of $1,000 plus the cost of prosecuting the case. Since Tennessee really uses the ACA 2014 Code of Conduct or Code of Ethics as the basis for their disciplinary actions, some of the violations that I found for this particular case, violations of the principles of beneficence, fidelity, and veracity, as well as violations of 8.6.b and 8.6.c, which point towards the harm of boundary crossing. And if boundary crossings are necessary, then proper documentation must be provided. I.1.b, documenting and implementing ethical decision-making models. 8.1.a, the primary responsibility is for the betterment of the client, and if we're acting unprofessionally, we're working for self rather than the client. And ultimately, 8.5.a, our goal is to minimize harm. For Tennessee, I look particularly at the statutes in the Tennessee Code annotated from 2020. Statute Title 63, Professions of the Healing Arts, Chapter 22, Part 1 for professional counselors, marital and family therapists. So if we go down into the statute 63-22-110, specifically B4 and C4 speak to the counselor engaging in professional misconduct, which leads to reprimanding by this disciplinary board. ACA Code of Ethics also speaks to impairment, and often impairment leads to these unethical decision making. And so C.2.g, impairment requires self-awareness and self-monitoring on the counselor's part for impairment or potential for impairment. When discovered, the counselor needs to seek remediation and consultation. This step away is to mitigate harm on the client's behalf. Also, it states that it's important for colleagues to assist one another in the awareness of impairment. The health of the counselor is an ethical issue when it results in unethical conduct that leads to harm for the client. So a question I had, since the cases for Tennessee were not in depth and just listed violations, how many of the disciplinary actions taken were the result of impairment that led to professional misconduct? Thanks, guys. Bye.